Guys, I just bought this broken $175 computer, not knowing the specs, and it ended up making me nearly $500 in profit. Stay to the end to learn more. So yes guys, today I have a system that I wanted to kind of show off to you guys. I took a gamble on it broken, trying to see whether or not it would maybe be a good opportunity to make some profit, or if I would just end up wasting my time, money, and gas. So let's get into it. So as far as how this deal came to fruition, I was on the way to eat with my family, so I decided to go ahead, open up my phone, and instead of doom scrolling TikTok or Instagram, I decided to doom scroll Facebook Marketplace instead. Just looking for any potential deals or builds that I could potentially, flip for a profit. And about a minute or so into my scrolling, I actually ended up finding this system. So obviously it's a system with seemingly good specs. The seller didn't actually list any off, but for $175, I wanted to see what was up. So as any reasonable guy, I decided to throw in a lowball. The seller had it listed at $175 and said it was broken, but obviously we know that it wasn't. So I sent in an offer of $100, and then about 15 or so minutes later, I realized that that was probably a pretty stupid decision. So I said, hey, I can actually do full price instead of trying to, penny pinch every single time and potentially losing the deal over that. So I went back, said I could do 175 and asked when they were next available. The seller ended up responding pretty quickly, and they said that they were available the next day in the afternoon. I said that was cool, and I wanted to kind of pry for a little bit more information. Now, obviously, as far as the specs, I didn't really care that much just because of the fact that I saw that GPU in there just hiding tucked away. So I wanted to see, like, what type of issues were they having with the PC? Why did they end up giving up on it and, just listing it for sale? And the seller ended up coming back to me and saying that they essentially were not able to get like an output onto the display, right? So obviously that can mean a couple of different things, potentially a graphics card failure, potentially something with the RAM, potentially with the power, or even just as simple as like, a bad HDMI cable. So I decided, you know what, it's worth the gamble and let's go for it. Honestly, at this price, this is one of those deals that you don't really ask too many questions about. You just go ahead, hop in the car, and try and secure it as soon as possible. Because it's pretty obvious that the people that are actually, behind the system, the people that are selling the system, don't really know too much about computers. Otherwise, they would be able to figure this out fairly easily, I would say. Now, a lot of the time, these sellers just want to get stuff, gone quickly. They don't really care about, answering a million questions. They're just going to go to the guy who actually has the money and wants to show up. After a closer inspection on the listing, I also saw that the PCIe cable for the GPU was a little bit loose and the RAM didn't look to be fully slotted in. So I decided, it could potentially just be one of those two things. So I went ahead, went out, got the build, and then brought it back to the studio. What's up, guys? So right now I'm on the way to buy this quote unquote broken PC. Found it on Facebook Marketplace. It has an RTX 3000 EVGA card. I think I want to say it's a 3060. It also could be a 3050. I'm not too sure. But either way, we're going over to I think it's about a 1 hour, like 1.5 hour drive. A little far, but the whole entire build itself is costing me 175 bucks. That's all she wants for it. So we're gonna definitely head over there, grab that, and see if we can potentially revive this broken PC by a little bit of troubleshooting, and yeah, we'll see. When I arrived to the seller's house, I just wanted to go ahead, quickly look inside the PC just to kind of see what type of specs we're working with and whether or not anything looked to be obviously damaged, and nothing was necessarily out of order, and the specs were actually better than I thought. So before getting too excited, I handed over the money and got the system back home. I need to actually go through and confirm that I could actually fix this build and that I could actually list it for sale. So within a couple of minutes of actually plugging it in and troubleshooting, I was able to figure it out. I cleared out the CMOS and decided to switch the orientation of the sticks and which slots they were in, and the PC worked as a charm. Everything booted up, and it was a very long 30 seconds that it took to actually post into the BIOS. And within a couple minutes, that was it. The build was fixed. The mystery build had an RTX 3060 12GB, which was the best case scenario, honestly, for this card. Other than maybe the 3060 Ti, but the 3060 12GB, we're going to take that as well, obviously. And I also assumed because of the cooler that it might have a Ryzen 7, just because it came included with that RGB Wraith Prism. And when it finally fired up, it confirmed my suspicions. A Ryzen 7 3700X. Now, as far as the full spec list for this $175 computer, let's get into it. So, it had a Ryzen 7 3700X, 24GB of RAM, being 3 8GB DIMMs clocked at 3600 MHz. For the motherboard, it had an Asus B450M Prime motherboard, which, is pretty standard, but it does the job well. For the cooler, it had that nice AMD Prism RGB cooler. For the storage, it came with a 1TB hard drive and a 1TB SSD, which was insane to me. Since the guy didn't mention that, it was a 1TB, he just said that he had, thrown in an SSD and upgraded the graphics card eventually, but I did not expect a 1TB drive. That was a super welcome addition, and it added to the build's value for sure. For the GPU, as I mentioned, it has that EVGA RTX 3060 12GB XC edition, which is definitely a good pair with the 3700X, and is definitely the standout piece of this build, especially at $175. Now for the power supply, it had an EVGA 450 watt bronze unit, which, is kind of cutting it for a build of this power level, right? Obviously 3700X, 3060, you're going to be wanting to do at least 550 watts. So I did upgrade that. And for the case, it was all inside of a Fantex P400. So as far as the changes that I actually made to the system, I ended up only adding a couple of things, being the Asia Horse cable extensions. And then I also got this Alienware 850 watt gold power supply from, just a random Alienware that I bought for $40. So that was a nice little come up. And then as well, I decided to put it all in a brand new Dark Flash DB330M case. This case is pretty similar to things like the Okeanos Aqua 3. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of using this case, but honestly, for the price, it looks decent and it really made the build, all come together. So with the parts breakdown out of the way, let's get into actually disassembling this build and putting it all in a new case. Alright, so now with the system all built, now it's time to actually get it sold. So I listed it on February 10th on Java and Marketplace for about $700 on each. And within the first couple of days, I got a few offers. I got the typical trade for PS5 or e-bike or, mini bike trades, stuff like that. Then 2 days later on the 12th, I got an offer from somebody about an hour and a half away that wanted the PC delivered to him. I asked for a $30 delivery fee, which looking back on it was honestly way too low. Just for the fact that obviously my gas cost that much, and then as well just the amount of time, 3 hours in the car, like it's not really too fun. But I think that's more so a lesson for the future. So I asked for the fee and he said it was cool with him, didn't really have a problem paying that, but he also wanted the RAM to be upgraded to 32GB just so it would be a little bit better for his tasks. Honestly, he caught me on a good day because I had just switched out the RAM for my personal system to be a 4x8GB setup instead of a 2x16. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, I can do that. No big deal. I can deliver it all to you for $750 flat. And he agreed. So I showed up, got the cash, and secured the deal.
My people, good day, yo. Boys,
I just sold the 3060 PC. I didn't take any photos or anything or any videos or anything like that before I left. That's my L YouTuber. But let me show y'all a little something. Yeah, what I mean. Cash money, $750 still. Build price was, I believe, $265 off the top of my head. I'll go ahead, I'll put a graph like right here. But yeah, boys, yo, profit on this, it's massive, bro, massive. So yeah, we'll get back to the studio. So yeah, guys, that's the gamble that I took on this PC, and overall I'm super happy with how this turned out. Now this could have went a lot worse, honestly. Let's say the GPU was bad or the CPU was bad or something like that, but thank God everything went to plan. And it also paid off handsomely, with the build coming out to a total cost of $300.86, with a profit coming out to $444.14. And that's after accounting for my RAM, the case, the power supply, the cable extensions, and then as well my gas. I'm super happy with how this build turned out and the fact that I was able to turn it around within 2 days. I'm definitely going to be looking forward into doing more higher end builds, such as like RTX 3000, RTX 4000 builds, just because they do seem to be like a little bit nicer as far as like the people that I'm actually going to be dealing with, compared to somebody who wants an RX 580 build for, you know, $300. I feel like right now the market is in kind of a tougher spot, especially with that sub $500 range. There's so much competition. Like, especially if you look at your Java, if you look at your local, there's going to be people that are selling anywhere from, I've even seen RTX 2060 builds or RX 5700 XT builds for $450. It's literally insane, because right now it just seems like the best way is actually just to, you know, undercut each other just so that way you can get the sale, which isn't ideal, but I feel like that's kind of mitigated a little bit when we go, you know, higher end, let's say $800 or more. So let me know what you guys think. Maybe you think it's too, you know, too saturated, or there's just too much competition, or we're just in kind of like a rougher spot because it's the beginning of the year. Let me know your thoughts down below. Overall, again, I'm super happy with how this turned out, and I really look forward to making some more content for you guys. I also try to include a little bit more information as far as like actually selling the build this time around. So let me know if you guys like that. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and join the Discord as well. That's where you can see kind of like some sneak peeks at new content that's coming out, as well as, you know, we also drop deals in there. So yeah, guys, really appreciate you guys for sticking around all the way to the end, and thank you for watching, and see ya.